Industrialization is a process by which an economy moves from primarily agrarian production to mass-produced and technologically advanced goods and services. This phase is characterized by exponential leaps in productivity, shifts in rural and urban labor, and increased standards of living. By typical measurements such as income per capita or labor productivity, industrialization can be considered the most important economic development in history. Sadly, despite the availability of the required natural resources, successive governments failed to make the dream of Nigeria's industrialization a reality. Our desire to become an industrialized country remained a pipe dream until now. The Tertiary Education Trust Fund, having intervened in the developmental affairs of Nigeria's public universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education for years, figured out that there was still something missing. The executive secretary of TETFund, Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro, upon his deployment to this great task, diagnosed that the keys to unlock accelerated economic and technological advancement had eluded us because we refused to give maximum priority to research and development.
With the NRF, what we did to incentivize and attract our best was to carefully pick some of our best of researchers and professors and chief lecturers in the university's Polytechnic College of Education to come into what we call the NRF committee. So we are attracting them and incentivizing them through working with the committee, and this committee are comprising of some of the best across the discipline.
In a decisive move as part of its efforts to institutionalize R&D in Nigeria, TETFund inaugurated the Research and Development Standing Committee, a think tank of some of Nigeria's most brilliant minds and stakeholders who worked for several months for the emergence of a national research and development foundation for the country. Having produced over 35 reports drawn from 13 key sectors of the economy through the TETFund RDSC, a committee was set up by TETFund to draft a bill for the establishment of the National Research and Development Foundation. Nigeria's National Research and Development Foundation, once established, will be the intermediary agency between the policies and strategies of the government, Nigeria's research institutions within and about the academia, and Nigeria's industry in a triple helix family. Professor Awalu Yadudu of the Faculty of Law, Bayero University, Kano, is the chairman of the drafting committee. He provides a breakdown of the journey that will culminate in the legal establishment of the NRDF.
I teach at Bayero University in Kano, at the Faculty of Law in Bayero University, Kano. I have been all sorts of things, but Deputy Vice Chancellor, Dean Faculty of Law, and currently I am the chairman of the committee that the TETFund has established to carry out a proposal made by the Research and Development Standing Committee to enact a law for research and development in Nigeria.
There is already a committee, which is the RDSC, that have worked for over a year trying to look at the landscape of research and development in Nigeria and trying to see how we can establish a national research and development foundation. So they've done a lot of work and a lot of documents. So one of our terms of reference is actually to look at all the documents that have been developed by over 100 renowned Nigerians that have a feel that there is a need to reposition research and development in Nigerian economy. So one is for us to look at those documents. The other is that if you're going to draft a bill that is related to research and development, there are other bills related to research and development in Nigeria. So you must make sure that these bills are not contradicting each other, Instead, there is a synergy. So we have to look at all the other bills of research institutes, of teaching hospitals, universities, and so on, and other agencies of Nigerian government. Then the fourth one is that there's so much of cross-cutting issues across all the thematic groups that we're thinking of in research and development. And there is need to really look at that and ensure that, we're not contradicting each other, we're not replicating what others have done, but more or less, partnership, synergy, collaboration, and trying to work together.
When you're seeking to draft a law, it involves a lot of technical expertise, it involves a lot of nuances that you need to think through carefully. And given the nature of the foundation that is sought to be created, you need to also have a sense of comparative perspectives. What is the development in other parts of the world? So
Nigeria will have a research community that strives to create new value and pave the way for a bright and prosperous future by setting the direction of the nation's basic and applied research across all academic disciplines. But how will the NRDF achieve this?
This bill is a legal document that can provide the Research and Development Foundation a basis, a pillar on which to function. For a Research and Development Foundation to actually function, you need a legal backing. You need something that will back it up. And because of, it's looking at more than one partnership. You're looking at basically like 3 major partnerships in this foundation, looking at the government, looking at the academics, and looking at the industry. Now, for them to work in harmony, there must be a legal document to back up, to support, and provide the enabling environment for these 3 different partnerships to work. If you just leave them on their own, at the end of the day, we might not achieve what we want. So that's why I think having a bill is really essential if we really want the foundation to achieve its goal.
What this foundation will essentially set out to do is, alongside the drive and the vision of the Executive Secretary of TETFund, is essentially to provide a paradigm shift in terms of driving research in a manner that is constructive, productive, and advances the development of our country. Over the course of time, you find that many academics write only with a view to promotion. So the research that is undertaken is driven simply by the imperatives of promotion. But what is the nature of engagement that needs to take place between researchers on the one hand and industry? What is the synergy that needs to be created, or are we working in silos?
The bill really seeks to achieve a number of things. First of all, to establish a foundation that would bring together, I would say, research agencies, academies, development partners, and research institutions to now focus on research and development in Nigeria that will be result-oriented, that will generate ideas that will not remain on the shelves, but will be in the supermarket for implementation. Such a piece of legislation would contain the objectives being to found a foundation that will be exist in perpetual, that is independent, that is well funded, and that also is very inclusive in the membership of the board of trustees, and also the management team, and that also brings in representatives of the various players in research and development, industry, academy, research institutions, and all those who have one thing or another to say about research and development in this country, with a view to giving it perpetual, sustainable, independent existence.
A bill of this nature would have to take a long journey before it emerges as an act when signed into law by President Muhammadu Buhari. How will TETFund manage the process?
Ours is to draft a bill. There will be the need for buy-in of the critical stakeholders, the National Assembly, which will have to pass it into law. It doesn't become effective or operational or operative until the National Assembly go through the process of it being discussed at the Federal Executive Council and the necessary directives being given for the Minister of Justice to table, for the SGF to table a piece, the draft before the National Assembly and for it to be adopted. Every step of the way, the office of the ES TETFund has, and based on the recommendation of the Research and Development Standing Committee, timelines have been drawn up, engagements have been organized, and advocacy steps also have been worked out. And hopefully this will happen sooner than later.
In terms of the governance regime, what we're proposing, and this is very fundamental, you can have a body, but if you don't have a regime that is fit for purpose in terms of governance, then you are actually not anchored on a sustainable pillar. And part of the challenge that we grapple with is putting in place the appropriate governance regime that is not one that panders to the vagaries of the moment, is not one that panders to political expedience. It's one that is, as I like to put it, it's slim, it's smart, it's functional, and it's not belabored or bogged down by bureaucratic bottlenecks. And that also means that you need to have the right individuals that are fit for purpose. You need to make sure that the Board of Trustees is constituted by individuals that are, by reason of their eminence and distinction, people that inspire confidence in terms of moving the agenda for research and development forward. You need to make sure that you get the right chief executive and the support staff that understand the bigger picture and understand what is at stake. That the future of this country may very well depend on what they do in pushing the frontiers of research for development.
The drafting bill committee in collaboration with TETFund are looking at a governing structure whereby it is positioned in the presidency first, so that there will be that autonomy. Because you see, industry is a major partner, and if you want industry to really partner with you, they must have autonomy. They will not want the bureaucracy of government to hamper their progress. So we looked at all other agencies that have actually succeeded in achieving their objectives, and we felt maybe this should come under the presidency. Now, then of course, create a board of trustees, and this board of trustees we should make sure that the membership cuts across all the stakeholders that are essential in making sure that the foundation works and functions well. So you're looking at membership from the government agencies, and the government agencies that are directly related to research and development. You're looking at membership from the industry. You're looking at membership from the academia. And in the academia, you're looking at, the different parts of the academics, looking at science, looking at technology, looking at social sciences, looking at humanities, Then we're also looking at membership from international bodies, donor agencies, because we're hoping that funding will not just come from the government. After the board, you have, of course, the management. And the management now will consist of course, the chief executive officer of the foundation. And then we're also looking at, having some deputies that are also representing the key stakeholders. So this is how we're looking at the structure, but as you rightly know, we're still working on it, so it's not cast in stone. These are just ideas that are coming up, and the drafting committee is looking at all possibilities.
It is the big picture thinkers, like the scientists and the academics, with out of this world ideas and groundbreaking theories for change, who will pave the way for the future. But developing and testing theories requires a lot of research. And with that research comes huge investment. While research is an important part of academia, it can also be very costly. At the inauguration of the RDSC in September of 2020, the TETFund boss proposed an ambitious annual target of $5 billion for the NRDF. But where would this money come from? Innovative ideas are required here.
There are quite a number of government sources for research that are untapped. And they are also creatures of the law. But because they are so dispersed, they are not optimally used. The hope is that for now, really, we haven't quite put our fingers on what those sources are, but we can only speak of, in general terms, that there are funds available, both in terms of what the government has appropriated and the untapped research and development donations and gifts from the industry. In this country in particular, and the donor agencies, because there isn't such a focused approach, most corporations spend so little amount of money on research and development, but there is hope that with this law in place, one will be able to bring them as development partners also to make resources and funds available for research, and there will be protection of intellectual property. Hopefully also we will hope to tap from funding agencies that are abroad that are competitively available, that presently are left unaccessed.
Research is expensive, but development without research is more expensive. And ignorance is the most expensive. So for me, there is a figure that we are working with, and that figure is $5 billion US per annum. And if you look at that particular figure and look at the value of waste in this country that is associated for decisions being made that are not informed by data and research, then definitely you are going to know clearly that the rate at which we are actually wasting resources is more than what is required to do this R&D. That is number one. Number two is that there are a lot of provision in Nigerian laws, existing law, that has made certain provision for R&D funding. But as of today, nobody is looking at it. That money are being used for other purposes. And that is what the NRDF is saying, hey, can we wait a minute? All this money that are in different sectors of the economy that are meant to be used in the R&D functions, can we start aggregating them? That is one pause. So meaning that when the ES was talking about institutionalization of R&D in Nigeria, it's not talking about only academia or industry, including MDAs, including parastatals, including defense. Defense law, there's a component of it that speaks about R&D, and I think provision was made for up to 15% of certain budget line of defense that's supposed to be in R&D. So all this money are our interests that we want to harmonize and make sure that a foundation that is responsible is looking at that. That's 50% of the funding, looking at what we can get within the existing revenue formula, and the funding of government across all the MDAs, and make sure that at least this money were harnessed and put together for the function that it was originally meant for.
The NRDF, estimated to have an annual budget of $5 billion, is to be funded from proposed two main sources. The first being $2.5 billion to be funded from aggregated multiple sources in the current revenue formula, while the remainder of $2.5 billion is expected to come from the prescribed percent financial contribution for R&D by all public and private entities in the country, which amount, if diverted or misappropriated by such entities, will be an offense liable to jail terms as may be prescribed by the expected NRDF enabling law.
We're looking at the different pieces of legislation that have one thing or another to say about protection of intellectual property. It's very poorly done in this country, one must admit. But innovation would not thrive when the product of our efforts, individual efforts, are not protected, and you generate ideas, it is stolen, it is abused. The intellectual properties registry also takes forever before it registers a patent. We're looking at how such loopholes in the existing piece of legislation can be plugged so that we provide greater and more reliable protection for your own intellectual initiative, so that for the benefit of all. But it is all works in progress.
There is indeed much to be excited about when it comes to the R&D Foundation. This initiative will lead changes in future-oriented research ecosystems and become a platform and facilitator of interaction among universities, research institutes, and the industry.
It should make a tremendous impact. You should see a difference in particularly providing much required funding facilities and resources.
It is, in my respectful view, going to be really, really a game changer. And again, in the spirit of the paradigm shift, when it will, in my view, if properly implemented, fundamentally transform the landscape of research for development.
But what a foundation will do is taking the research outputs of these centers of excellence to the next level. And that next level is trying to ensure that the output is translated into either an industrial product, into a policy to change the direction of the economy, all right? And once it is changed into a product, that means you need the industry.
The National Research and Development Foundation will set the national direction for R&D by developing policies, plans, and strategies for research, innovation, and enterprise, funding initiatives that strengthen research and scientific capabilities, and it will achieve economic and national impact. The plan is to grow Nigeria's economy through research, innovation, and enterprise as underpinned by our strategic thrusts of strengthening foundational capabilities, developing talent, driving research excellence through competition, and ensuring impact through public-private collaborations, industry-oriented R&D, and commercialization. And that is the paradigm shift.